Hey everyone, welcome. This is Jason Clemens, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. We are live right here from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios in Lubbock, Texas. We're on the radio at 98.7, Walk by Faith. That's a cool radio station right there. Got some good people that work over there. 98.7, Walk by Faith Radio, 1420 AM for all you guys out a little bit further around. 987radio.com. We're on social media all over the world on the Rock Health and Wellness Centers on Facebook, at Health from the Rock on YouTube, and Jason Clemens DC on X. Hope you guys had a great week. We did here at the Rock too. We had a good week. We had a busy week. We had a lot of stuff going on. Today was kind of crazy. We had a little bit of an unusual Friday sequence wise, and it was like I only worked for about 3 hours, and then I went and got a massage. But that during that 3 hours, I felt like I'd worked 8 hours. It was like just the way we kind of sequenced thing together. We did multiple shock waves. We were dealing with some pain issues, and there were several things going on out there this morning. That did a doctor's report, got a new person started on their care, and so I was like, wow. I went over and told my massage therapist that when I got there, she's like, "How was your morning?" And I said, "Well, I'm so glad I get it. I get it. As I was walking in there, I get it because life is balanced, right? And so life is balanced. You've got positive and negatives all the time, always. And you got to always remember that. And so I was like, this day is completely balanced. It was a little chaotic this morning, and it's going to be awesome for the next hour and a half because I'm going to enjoy this massage. And I did. And if you guys are in Lubbock, you need a good massage therapist, I got one for you, Lori Ann. She's fantastic. So you send me a text, I'll send you her number. Just tell me you want Lori Ann's number so you can get a massage. 806-794-0400 is our phone number. If you got any questions or comments while we're doing the show, this is live right now. I'm sitting here on Friday night at 6:05 in my office in Lubbock, Texas, and we're going to talk about health. So if you got something that you want to send to me, feel free to do that. 806-794-0400. You can send it our way. And we're going to have a fun show tonight. We're going to talk about the cervical spine, some findings that were made. We're going to get a little technical for you. And because I think it's going to be super cool so that you understand it. We're going to look at some x-rays. We're going to look at some studies that was just released. And that's what we got on tap. Got some cool pictures from Instagram. That World of Biology is a really cool Instagram page, and we got some of their pictures about the nervous system tonight. So I think it's going to be a fun night. But this morning I had a chance to have some breakfast, drink a little coffee, and I was looking through Facebook at some of the news that was going on, trying to catch up on the what was happening in Ruidoso, New Mexico, and I was watching some of those videos. A lot of you guys have probably seen that too. You've seen the videos of the flood up there and how it washed away the racetrack and all that sort of thing. And that was a big part of my life. As you guys know, that I grew up on a horse, from fifth grade on a horse ranch in Roswell, and owned by my aunt and uncle that from eastern New Mexico. And we bred mares. We had probably at 1.7 stallions, I think. We had a stallion on our ranch during that time that at the time that it happened. His name was Real Jetwind, and his mama and his daddy were the only. His mama and his daddy both won the All-American fraternity in Ruidoso, and he was the only horse alive or only stallion that mama and daddy had both won the All-American fraternity, and he was there on our ranch during that time. So Ruidoso has been a big part of it. Starting, I think, 7th grade was our first crop of racing horses. And I spent summers there working at the racetrack and running around Ruidoso and all that sort of thing. And so it's just, the town is just kind of like a second home to me being there. And my good friend Joe Fraley's up there. And so I'm still tied into the town and get to go and visit and hang out. And my brother-in-law Rick that passed away last year, their family had a cabin up there, and we spent a lot of good times up there, talking chiropractic and doing things. So I have a fondness for Ruidoso. And so I was looking at that. And I had this kind of a download of information, like wisdom, came to me because I was I was watching that water wash that racetrack away. I was watching the river just rise and all the way up from the canyon, and how it just came down, and that big old, just that big pile of trees and branches and everything that were just getting washed down through there, and it hit that bridge, and how it overflowed, and then just all down through Midtown and all that in Ruidoso, and how it just got out up on the street in Sutterth, and it was just crazy. And then it got down to the racetrack, and it was just like, whoa. Like, in the they showed they finally, I saw some video of the other side of it, where it was coming out on that east side, and it was like, if you guys have never been there, and for you guys that have been there, when you're leading a horse, which I have done before multiple times, when you're leading a horse from the barn area onto the racetrack, there's this big, um, like a tunnel that they've made that goes underneath the racetrack. So I don't know how wide the racetrack is. It's probably, shoot, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 yards wide. I don't know how wide that racetrack is. Um, Maybe 30 yards wide. I don't but but that tunnel goes all the way up underneath it, and the tunnel is big enough to drive a truck or tractor through it. And it's got to be, I don't know, it's got to be 10, 12 feet tall. Um, all that going through there, maybe 15 feet high. And it was just, that's why you take the horses onto the track from the barn area. Well, the whole entire infield of the track is a lake, and there's nothing holding that. So man, they showed it this morning, and they just showed all that water just coming out of that tunnel. It just looked like someone had opened a dam over on that side of the racetrack. It just looked like there was, I mean, it was just the whole tunnel, 15, whatever, 12 foot high. I don't know how exactly high it was, but in wide it's just full of water, and it was just being forced out of there. It was just unbelievable to look at. And I was watching that whole thing, and I was started thinking about all of the money that they spent to rebuild the racetrack, because this whole thing washed away last year after the fires that they had up there, and they had the big flood last year in July and washed the racetrack away. So those guys, they got in the millions of dollars that they spent. And someone told me this morning that it was like they heard maybe like $17 million from FEMA, and then another tens of millions of dollars or whatever that they spent privately trying to get that track all together. I just watched a video not too long ago of the jocks room in there, that and showing them rebuilding the whole jocks room and getting it back together, and then all the stuff that they did. And I was watching all that this morning, and I was thinking, oh man, that's just so unfortunate that that like, golly, they spent all that money, and it just washed away again. And now that jocks room is like, man, if you guys seen the pictures, the water level is up to the very top of the building. Like, you could just see the roof of the jocks room, and that water level is like almost right to where the little hangover of the roof is. And the tote boards underwater, and that whole thing just got washed away. The track got washed away. It was horrible. And it occurred to me that Mother Nature does what she will. Mother Nature doesn't really care how much money you've spent on your renovating of your racetrack. Mother Nature doesn't really care anything about whether or not you have a racing season going on, or if there's a lot of people invested a lot of money in that whole thing. Mother Nature doesn't care about the whether or not you want to sell turquoise down on at the Ruidoso, market, or whatever the thing is, right? Mother Nature doesn't care anything about whether you want to pull your RV up there and park it next to the river for 4th of July, it and have you a vacation. Mother Nature just does what she will. And she doesn't care about your plans. She just does what she will, because that's what she does. I mean, that's the way it works. Like nature just does its thing. And I thought to myself while I was watching that, that's the way health works too. Health does the same exact thing. Like it doesn't, health follows the laws that were put in place to govern the earth. Then that's just the way it works. And health doesn't care what's on your schedule, and health doesn't care how much money you've spent for supplements, and health doesn't care what you're planning on doing this afternoon or this weekend, or if you just got married or you've been married 30 years or you're not married at all. Health doesn't care. Like health just operates within the laws of health. It's just the way it works. And it's not going to make any difference. If you don't follow those laws, you're going to come up against a flood in your life. And if you don't follow those laws, it doesn't make any difference how much money you got or where you live in town or what kind of car you drive. It doesn't make any difference. Health is, it's like, when that water just comes down that mountain, it doesn't just wash away Republican houses or Democrat houses. It doesn't just come down there and just wash away just, like white people or just Mexican people or whatever. It doesn't just pick out the rich people and wash them away or the poor people and wash them away. It doesn't make any difference to the water, right? It's just coming down the mountain. It's just going to wash away whatever's in front of it. It's just the way it works, right? And health is, I really thought about that this morning, and I thought, that health does exactly the same thing. It just, there's laws that govern health, and if you follow them, you live pretty healthy. And if you don't follow them, you don't live very healthy. And it doesn't make any difference who you are. Like the richest people have the same issues that the poorest people have. And everybody has the opportunity to follow some of those laws. So I don't know. I thought it was great learning this morning while I had the opportunity to just be quiet and be still for just a second, kind of, and take that in. Cause I thought, man, you go back to Genesis, you could go into, just read the first chapter of Genesis. And in the beginning, right? God created the heavens and the earth. You know, Now the earth was formless and empty, darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw that light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning on the first day. It's like when he created the heavens and the earth, what came along with that was gravity. It's like, right, right. It's like that right there. This is what I'm talking about right here. And I know you guys on the radio can't hear it. All you can do is you can't see it. You could just hear the banging, right? I'm just dropping a pin on my desk. It's like the law of gravity. When was this established? That's a good question, right? When was the law of gravity established? 1974, 1886, 1692. What was it? What was it? Nope. The law of gravity was established on the days that God made the heavens and the earth. Period. It's like whenever that was, whatever time that came about. And if you don't believe in God, well, whatever your belief system said when all this came about, gravity started. Right? There's some you can map it out and say, hey, okay, well, the moon's spinning around and we're spinning in a circle and there's mass and all that sort of thing. Fine. However you want to define it, but it's been that way since the beginning of time. That is a law that just governs the way that gravity, it just works, right? There's never been a time on earth that I could drop this pin and it not just hit the desk, other than a desk, or hit the ground, right? There's never been a time I've just been able to drop that and it didn't fall. I think a lot of times what we do in health is we try to somehow say, well, if I take this supplement or this thing, or I do this special kind of light, or I do this sort of like, you know, take my shoes off and walk around the building and stand on my head and look to the east or something like that, that I might be able to make that not fall. Right? You guys know it. You guys know that that's kind of what we do sometimes. It's like there's all these things. It's like, nope. You got to eat well, move well, and think well if you want to be healthy. It's not any more difficult than that, and it's not going to change. No, it doesn't matter how many guys you listen to on Instagram. It doesn't matter how many of these crazy chiropractors are that have their own show that you listen to. It doesn't make any difference at all. If like the next new thing can come out, and the next new thing is just going to be another thing that someone tried to come up with to get you to see if you can break the laws of nature. See if you can make that river stop. Only one person I've ever heard of. Moses was the only one, right? I mean, Jesus walked on the water. He calmed it all down the waves and stuff. And Moses is the one that said, stop, you separate. And they walk through it. Y'all heard anybody else to do that? I mean, how come nobody up in the mountain just says stop and just stops that water like that? Right? It just that water just does what it does. So if you want to be healthy, there's things that you could do to be healthy, and that's what we talk about. Like last night, we talked about magnesium. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. Watch last night's show. Go to the Rock Health and Wellness Center's page. Go to the Walk by Faith page on Facebook and watch that show from last night. And it'll be pretty cool. You can find that one out about magnesium. That's one of the things that's good. Got to get nutrients. One of my guys was not doing very well. Went and got an IV infusion and did really well. Said, man, he had a lot of energy today. And I was like, man, I was thinking about that. As soon as I saw that text from him, I was thinking about that a lot. And I was like, I may be missing the boat. We may just need we got to ramp up those B vitamins. And I called him and said, hey, you might be listening right now, but I called him and said, what was in that IV infusion? How'd you get those nutrients into your body to make yourself more energetic? Because I was thinking in my brain, hey, we gotta super ramp up. He didn't have the fuel and activation, right? We talked about that this week, fuel and activation. You got to get that fuel. You got to get that fuel to the body, to the tissues, in order for the tissues to work right. And let me show you a cool picture, like just things in the brain. Like this is like super cool. And this is this is a picture of the cerebellum, and it's on G Dunn Art on Instagram. You guys can go check it out if you want to. There's some really cool stuff right there. Hope you can see it. You guys are on the radio. Go to the Walk by Faith Facebook page and check that out and see that. But just it's like the cerebellum is like firing, like there's just the brain is like moving and firing, and there's just so much going on inside the brain. And it's like we don't see it, and we don't think about it. We don't understand it. We don't really understand how like amazing, like what is that right there? And this is just I don't know exactly how they film that or whatever, or put it all together, but it's and that may not be whatever. It's just but that's coordination, balance, and um, posture. That's the part of the brain, the cerebellum, posture, coordination, balance, right? So if your cerebellum is not functioning properly, you're going to have a problem with posture, and you're going to have a problem with balance, and it's like, wow, there's like a lot of stuff going on, and it's just governed by laws. It's just, look, there's a certain way that it works, and there's a certain way that it doesn't work, and I didn't invent it. It's just the way it works. You can feed it certain things and you can make it work better, or you can feed it other things and you can make it work worse. And I was listening to Robert Pratt on the radio. He's a guy that comes on the radio before, and he's talking about the individual person has to make the decision. And I 100% agree with Robert on that. Every one of us has to make the decision, not the government making the decision for us or whatever, right? That was his stance on it today. And he's talking about something else, but from a from a nutrition standpoint, we're the ones that, from an individual standpoint, have to make these decisions on how do we want our body to work. And so, what I saw this, there was a cool article. Those guys, Dean Harrison, and those guys at Chiropractic Biophysics, um, they they're up to it again, and man, they wrote a paper, and it's in Nature, and it's a big deal right here in Nature, and it's comparison. This is the title. It's going to blow your mind, but it says comparison of corticomuscular coherence under different balance paradigms in individuals with and without forward head posture. And so it just came through on my email, got sent to me, and I was like, Deed and those guys, chiropractic biophysics has been around since before I was in chiropractic school. My brother-in-law studied it. A guy went to chiropractic school who had gone to be an engineer first. So Donald Harrison was his name. He went to school to become an engineer. He didn't like being an engineer, so he ended up going to chiropractic school. And when he got to chiropractic school, he was learning things in chiropractic school that were contradictory to what he was learning or what he knew about the laws that govern physics and engineering. And so he was like, no, that's not the way loads and forces work on the spine and all that sort of thing. And so when he got out of chiropractic school, he created this company and this term, chiropractic biophysics. And it makes a lot of sense to me because it's about loads and forces and how your body works. And we do a lot of it. I'm not a certified chiropractic biophysics person. I've just been studying it for 25 years. And but his son Deed is just one of the top researchers, and he's always trying to do more research and more research. And he's a legitimate dude. He's like, this is Nature magazine right here that this article is published. And in the press release, it just says, this research demonstrates that forward head posture is not merely a musculoskeletal issue. It alters how the brain and muscles coordinate, suggesting that the body must recruit more cortical resources to maintain balance and stability. So I'm gonna attempt to kind of get into this a little bit tonight, and because I think if you can stick with me for a bit, you'll really think this is cool, or at least you'll have a better understanding. Like, whoa, Jason's been saying that. Like, my spine and my brain are tied together. Like, my posture matters if I'm going to go in it for long periods of time. And it's like, it's not about the segment. It's not about my back pain as much as it's about my brain first, right? Like, we say that all the time. It's about our brain first. And what feeds our brain? Our brain is getting information at 3 trillion bits of information from our body, in our senses, our eyes. Your eyes are feeding that cerebellum like crazy because that's balance. I mean, you guys ever tried to just stand up? You ever just try to stand up and stand on one foot and then just hold your balance on one foot and then just close your eyes? Like, how quickly, once you stand up, how quickly do you think it would take you before you close your eyes, you start to lose your balance? Now, why would that happen? What is neurologically happening inside my body? Well, I'm getting about 40% of the input, the sensory input that's going into my brain is coming through my eyeball. So I'm sitting here and I've got my balance. I'm looking at you. I've got my eyes on you. And I can see that light. I can see that light. I can see this computer screen. I can see that red cup right there. I can see my phone. I can see that wall. I can see the lights up there. I've got all of this data that's coming into my brain. And then all of that data is firing all through the brain and firing up into that cerebellum. And it's like, and that cerebellum is receiving all that information, and then that it's firing. It's like it's coming into the visual cortex. The visual cortex is firing it throughout the whole cortex. It's coming to the frontal lobe. the frontal lobe is the right side brain is telling the left side brain what to do. And it's like, and the left side brain is firing back. And it's like, whoa. And then we're trying to balance. So we got a motor cortex that's sending information back to the cerebellum. And then the cerebellum is firing that information back to the motor cortex. And it's like all that's happening. And then all that is going down. And that's the article title, Corticomuscular Coherence. That's comparison of corticomuscular coherence, right? What does that mean? Cortical part and muscles. How do our muscles work in the first place, right? They work by the brain receiving information and then processing information and then sending information back down to the muscle to keep us working like we're supposed to. But what happens if you take 40% of the input from your eyeballs out? So I'm always telling people in the office, open your eyes. Open your eyes. My people in the gym, a lot of times they want to do their workouts and they want to close their eyes because they're trying to focus. And I'm like, no, you don't have the capacity to focus and eliminate 40% of the energy that's coming into your cerebellum. You're going to fall down. Right? It's like you got to be able to see what you're doing to have the kind of balance that we're trying to do if you're going to do CrossFit workouts. Or I'll have somebody set up on the table and they'll set up and then they'll just want to close their eyes. And I'm like, open your eyes, open your eyes, open your eyes. Hey, we got to take a break. We ran through that first segment. We're gonna take a break. We're gonna come back. We're gonna continue. We're gonna get into this article. I'm gonna show you some X-rays. We're gonna get into it and talk about how your cervical spine and your viscera are compared and working together. We'll be right back. We'll let them have a little bit of time on the radio, but we're going to go ahead and just talk through some of this stuff. And if you guys are new to the show, I'm doing a live radio show and a live social media show simultaneously. So we've got in my headset right here, I'm listening to commercials right now on 98.7 Walk by Faith. So we got that going on, and we got the social media part going on. So right now I've turned off the microphone to the radio station, and now we just got the social media part working, and we can keep going on social media while they're doing commercials. And then in just a minute, I'll get them back on and we'll continue. But we're just going to kind of walk through this. It's very complicated. Basically, what they wanted to know is there a difference between forward head posture and normal head posture in the way that the brain works? And as chiropractors, we know that. We know that that's the case. We've known that's the case since for at least 21 years because they knew that was the case when I was in school. And it's why it's really funny from a diagnosis standpoint. Everybody wants to have a diagnosis. What's wrong with me, doc? And it's like on a diagnosis from my standpoint, it's somatic segmental dysfunction. Your somatic nervous system, which is your muscular nervous system, is dysfunctioning segmentally throughout the spine because of the lack of corticomuscular coherence or the increase in corticomuscular coherence. It's like what's going on in the brain. It's changing the brain. Forward head posture changes the brain. That's what this article says. Forward head posture changes the balance. It's like you don't have control of your balance. You guys have heard me talk about my dad a lot. My dad reached over to pick up a rock. My dad had massive forward head posture because of his arthritis that he had, his ankylosing spondylitis. He had this massive head forward posture. Hang on, let me get us back on the radio. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. We're talking about the brain and the spine and how it all fits together. And this article that Deed Harrison and another person put together, It's in nature. It's really showing us that it's measured stuff, that it's different. And what it's saying is that that and we're going to get into the article, but I was telling you guys on the radio, I was telling the story about my dad. My dad had really forward head posture. And one day he just decided that there was a rock in the front of the house that needed to go to the back of the house, and he was going to put it on the golf cart and drive it around. They lived on 5 acres in Athens and Texas, and he leans over to pick up the rock, and when he stands back up, he just goes completely back over and on his back, hit his back and the back of his head on the ground. It's I'm not going to go any further into that story. It was a horrible deal for him and messed him up for the rest of his life. But the the point I'm trying to make is that forward head posture actually changes the way your brain works. We talked about it earlier in the week about dysfunctional segments and how dysfunctional segments change prefrontal cortex and executive function, right? Well, this one is the same. It's basically saying some of the same stuff. It's just this is so complicated that I'm going to try to make it make any sense. But this is a case control investigation, was conducted to assess corticomuscular coherence, CMC. We're just going to call it CMC. And just understand that CMC is talking about the brain, how the brain is working, basically. Okay. So this is an investigation to assess how the brain was working under different balance conditions in order to identify alterations that may arise due to forward head posture. 64 participants between the ages of 18 and 25 were recruited for the study. Participants were free from any musculoskeletal symptoms and matched for relevant demographics. They were assessed for forward head posture and then whether or not they had normal head posture. Participants were evaluated using the Biodex balance system, while both EEG and EMG signals were acquired simultaneously to investigate this coherence. What does that mean? Like, we do this in the office. We do neurofeedback in the office, and what we get is we get this map just like this. So this map it's super cool, but you put electrodes on the brain, and then you can see the brain waves. You can see what's going on inside there. It's a little bit like this other Instagram picture that I saw. Like, this is like information going through the brain, and you can kind of see it light up. There's the cerebellum again. Let me see if I could get to this next one. No, that one's actually a synapse. Let me. Yeah, I can't make it go back, but that's just like the midbrain, the complexity of the brain. It's just showing. There it is. There's a great picture of it right there. It's just like all of this stuff that's going on in the brain, right? So you've got input, output. It's just amazing what's happening inside the brain. So they did the surface EMGs in this article, and they got a map. And so they put these people on some balance plates, and they ask them to do some different things. And they look to see, is there a difference between the way that the brain is working in a person that has normal head posture, basically saying this, and let me show you what that means, versus a person that has forward head posture. So you guys, we've looked at some of these pictures in the past. And so we're looking at this one for this particular reason. Yeah, there we go. So, okay, if we're looking at two different X-rays, and we were to draw a line on the back of the bones of the X-ray, you would see that each one of the bones touches the green line, just to be very simple. But if you look at the one on the right, if you look at the X-ray on the right, what you see is the red dotted line is way forward from the green line. It's just we're taking an x-ray of a person's neck from the side and we're measuring what those bones are doing. This is that CBP stuff. This is that physics stuff that I was telling you about with Donald Harrison. They're like, no, wait a minute. Those two necks are not the same. They're not the same. They're not the same from a load and forces standpoint. They're not the same um, from a neurological standpoint. They're not. You can't treat. That's what I was. That's you know. I can't get too fired up again, again tonight, but it's what I was saying with evidence-based medicine. It this it's like, wait, it's not the same between those two people. If you don't take into consideration all of the things that are different between the people in your study's not evidence-based medicine. Like, you guys are full of crap. You think you're all high and mighty and you're on some pedestal because you are some evidence based hogwash. And it's like, no, wait a minute. You're not taking into consideration that this cervical spine and this cervical spine are different, which means the neurology that goes along with those two cervical spines are different, which means that the application of the drug when you put it into the body is different between the two people. It doesn't, we don't know what's happening. You give those two people the same drug and they have a different reaction. Why? Because their brain is different. See, that this cervical spine is different than this cervical spine. It's not just when I look at the x-ray, I see this degeneration in the neck. No, the degeneration in the neck to me is like, oh, whatever. It's like, yeah, it probably hurts a little. Like, sometimes it hurts, sometimes it doesn't hurt. It's degenerative. It's like you're wearing out your tennis shoes, right? It's probably going to jack up your arm at some point and make your arm hurt. Right? It's like, yes, is an issue with it. I know to the patient it's a big deal because their arm hurts. But what really bothers me about this forward head posture, and what really bothers me about these two differences between these two pictures, is the neurology that goes on with it. The brain is different. And that's what Deed is saying in his article. He's saying that what they did is they compared those things. They looked and to see, is there a difference between the two? Make sure yeah, okay. Is there a difference between the two, whether we have forward head posture or not, right? So they took all these people, they measured this. Balance was investigated under 4 conditions, increasing in challenge: standing with the eyes open, standing with the eyes closed, unstable standing with the eyes open with the biodex set on level 8, and unstable standing with the eyes closed with the biodex at level 8. We have the same thing. We have a balance plate here in the office. We could do exactly the same thing. We can stand you on the balance plate. We can test your balance. We can have you close your eyes. We can test your balance. We can put you on this pad, and you stand on the pad, and it does the same thing. These 4 things right there. Unstable standing with eyes closed at 11. In addition to recording the delta, beta, theta, alpha, and gamma waves, which is where you get the EMG from, right? We calculated both peak and average coherence values from the CMC, the brain function. Statistically significant differences were identified for the forward head posture group versus the normal head posture group for both peak and average CMC values, and for the interaction of balance difficulty. Similarly, all brain waves, delta, beta, theta, alpha, and gamma, demonstrated statistically significant differences between the normal head posture and the forward head posture groups, and for increasing balance difficulties across the 4 stages. This study demonstrates that forward head posture is associated with significant elevation in this cortical muscular coherence, a unique compensatory burden on the brain, particularly during physical challenging balance tasks, like picking up a rock, like leaning over and picking up a rock, right? It's like when we're working out in the mornings, I try to get my ladies that are working out, when we're doing push press, I try to get them to stop looking at the ceiling and looking at their hands when they're pushing. I don't want them to put their head up and look where they're pushing. I want them to look forward and then push the weight up with the dumbbells. because when they look up, they push the weight up, they're increasing the chances that they're going to fall backwards. Right? I want their eyes to be down and straight and be on the target in front of them, and then move their body through that range of motion. Because what this article is saying, and what they've actually tested right here, is that, look, forward head posture is not only has an elevation of the what's going on in the brain, it is also a burden on the brain, particularly during physically challenging balance tasks. Physically challenging balance task for a normal human being can be putting your shoes and socks on in the morning, can be getting up from the toilet, can be getting out of bed and walking into the bathroom, can be walking into the kitchen and turning around and walking back into the living room. Those can be those can be physically challenging tasks to do. And where your head is in relationship to your shoulder is is very important in the burden that's put on your brain. That's what this article is saying right there. And so now you ask the question, why do we have forward head posture? See, that whole thing, it all just starts to wrap itself back around. And it's like, okay, what is the problem with, why am I going into flexion? Why am I going into forward head posture again? What is my head going forward for? Well, because I'm losing that brain activity, which is now causing my flexor muscles to be tight again, and now I'm back forward again instead of being in extension. I'm telling you, like, if you start to get this and you're a grandparent, you will never give your grandchild your phone or an iPad again. You will make your grandchild get on their feet and get outside and play. You'll make them get on their feet and move. Get off your butt and quit looking at that phone. I'm telling you that all of us that are over 50 years old, or all of us that are over 40 years old, probably, we don't have any idea. You talk about a tidal wave coming down a mountain. You talk about that river coming down the mountain in Ruidoso, or down there in Kerrville, that just washed people away. The tidal wave of brain function problems that are coming our way from these kids that started on phones. And I'm not trying to say the sky is falling. I'm simply saying that neurology of forward head posture it's different. Forward head posture changes brain. Forward head posture changes right side, left side brain. Forward head posture changes prefrontal cortex and executive function. Forward head posture in a little kid changes dietary and digestive activity. It's like, what's the little kid got? Anxiety, depression, ADHD, acid reflux, like all the things. Like forward head posture changes testosterone. I know you're I know you're thinking now he's lost me. Like, I don't even know what in the heck. What are you saying? Like, forward head posture changes testosterone. I don't even understand what this guy's talking about. Yes, it puts a burden. What would you consider? Would you consider a burden on the brain? It says right there, forward head posture is associated with a unique compensatory burden on the brain. Now, let me ask you, from everything that we've ever talked about, would you consider the burden on the brain to be somewhat? Could you say that a different way? Could you say that a different way and say the burden on the brain might be the same thing as saying that we've increased the threat? Like, if you feel burdened, like right now, if you feel burdened, do you feel like a little bit threatened? Like, this is like stressful on you? Like, it would be like like if I was to throw a burden on you, would you feel at peace and rest and recover, or would you feel sympathetically fight or flight worried a little bit. Exactly, right? Forward head posture increases the burden on the brain. The burden on the brain increases the threat response, the sympathetic response. The burden on the brain increases the fight or flight response. The burden on the brain sends the brain into shoot, let's don't worry about the next anything but 90 seconds, which now shuts down your digestion, your immune system, your reproduction. There's your testosterone. It's like, see how many times we've gone over that. Well, you're not even looking at it. How many times we gone over that right there? And it's like you've seen it a lot of times. You've seen that whole thing a lot of times so far, right? And it's just one more time. It's just one more thing that says, look, forward head posture puts burden on the brain. And now the brain is burdened, which now means we've got an increase of sympathetic response, which now means that it's coming down into our digestive tract, and maybe we got to have our Rolaids, and we go get our testosterone pellets, right? So let's look at this article and see, like, okay, let's look at this article. And let me find it because I got a lot of articles open. Current concepts of the portion in the Lancet. Yeah. So this is current concepts of the cervical portion of the sympathetic nervous system from the Lancet, July 1960. Okay. Pages 337 and 338. This comes from an MD, and another doctor is a specialist in physical medicine, rehabilitation, and rheumatic diseases from back in the 1960s. And it says this: starting in 1916 and reasserting in 1921, it has been held that the cells of the origin of preganglionic sympathetic neurons are found only in the T1 through L1 segments of the spinal cord. That's only from T1, your thoracic spine, down to L1. So basically, your thoracic spine is the area where you have the sympathetic neurons. Okay. However, in 1940, French researchers showed that a preganglionic sympathetic neuron are found at the spinal cord levels of C4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. This was confirmed in 1947. So now it's like, wait a minute. Now we've got the sympathetic nervous system tied into the cervical curve. Now we've got the neck in the muscles that are the nerves in the neck are related to the sympathetic nervous system and how they fire and work, right? The cervical ganglia are the visceral ganglia. The efferent rami proceed to the viscera of the neck and the chest. What does the viscera of the neck mean? The viscera of the neck, your pharynx, your larynx, your thyroid gland, your parathyroid gland. What? What did you just say? Whoops. What did I do right there? There we go. That's what I was wanting you to see. Hope you can see it. Yeah. My thyroid function might have something to do with my forward head posture or the lack of function in my cervical spine. Like there might actually be some sort of disruption in thyroid by the way that my cervical spine is functioning. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying to you. Your larynx, your voice box, right? Your parathyroid and all that the bone structure and all that stuff that goes along with what's happening in osteoporosis and all that sort of thing right there around that gland. Those are viscera of the neck, not to count the viscera of the chest, where we're talking about the heart and the lungs, right? That's what that means. So, what it's saying is that in this article that was all the way back in 1960, it's saying the 5 cervical spinal roots carry sympathetic fibers that control the carotid and vertebral arteries of both the neck and the head. So, the diameter of the blood vessels to the head. In our notebooks, every single one of our notebooks that we give out to new patients, in the very back of it, there's an article that talks about the changes of blood supply to the head with the loss of the cervical curve. The fuel and activation, right? The fuel and activation that we constantly talk about is changes. Listen what it says right here. The fifth cervical spinal root carries sympathetic fibers that control the carotid and visceral arteries of both the neck and the head. The sixth cervical spinal root contains sympathetic fibers that control the subclavian artery and the brachial plexus. Now the subclavian artery under your clavicle, and then the brachial plexus coming down to your hand. The sympathetic fibers in C7 cervical root are connected with the cardio-aortic plexus, the thoracic branches of the subclavian artery and axillary arteries, and the phrenic nerve, which goes to your diaphragm. There's an old saying in chiropractic school, 3, 4, and 5 keeps the diaphragm alive. But what is the phrenic nerve? What does that mean? The phrenic nerve. What does that mean? The phrenic nerves are the two mixed nerves that originate from the cervical spine nerves of 3 to 5 and are crucial for breathing as they control the diaphragm's movement. Each nerve innervates one side of the diaphragm, allowing it to contract and expand, which facilitates inhalation and exhalation. 3, 4, and 5 that's where you get the hiccups. So when you get the hiccups, it's the spasm in the diaphragm, and it's the 3, 4, and 5 nerve roots that are feeding the diaphragm. There's so many times that a person comes in, they've got the hiccups, we adjust their neck, and their hiccups go away. And people call that voodoo. I'm like, no, dude. You know what I think? I think this. That's what I think. Boy, Doc, that's voodoo. Like you're magical. You're so, man, it's like magic what you do. And I'm like, no, it's not magic. It's neurology. And you know how long it's been going on? Since gravity. Like right after that, if you go down in Genesis, just a little bit further, after he created the heavens and the earth, and he separated the days and the nights and the water and the land and put the critters on the earth and all that stuff, then he made man in his image. That's when neurology happened. That's when this happened. And that's when that phrenic nerve innervated that diaphragm. It's not new stuff. It's not magical. But who teaches us this? Like, where are the teachers in the earth? Where are the teachers that teach the people that this is the way that your body works? Why am I the guy that you may have heard this for the very first time from? What in the heck is going on? Why are we not teaching this in the first grade? Like, why are we not teaching this in seventh grade, ninth grade? Why are there's not mandatory classes? You got to have a mandatory class on how to run a computer. Maybe you ought to have a mandatory class on how your cervical spine works. Wouldn't it be fun to do that? Like, because those things, so what I'm saying is that the cervical spine affects the viscera. And down here at the bottom of this article, and he gets into all this stuff, but Dan makes this comment. He says, for more than half a century, chiropractors have claimed that spinal adjusting influences the viscera via reflexes to the sympathetic nervous system. An appreciable number of scientific studies and clinical observations have supported the existence of these somatosympathetic reflexes, increasing the biological plausibility that spinal adjusting influences visceral physiology. Yes, we know that. And then what the haters will do is they'll say, you guys think you can cure everything. And it's like, no. It's like you're a parent and you bring your kids to get adjusted, and your kids get better and your kids stay healthier than the other kids in the class. Just like my kids stayed healthier all the way through than the other kids in their class. Caitlin used to get so fussy about missing class because she was like, if we went to Dallas for the weekend, like I'd want to go to Dallas to go to Dallas or something and go shopping or go watch a game or do something, right? And she would fuss about having to miss school on Friday because her perfect record was going to get, like it's going to be like ruined. And she wanted to make sure that she didn't have to take the final or whatever the thing was, right? It was like she didn't miss classes because she was sick all the time. She never went to the pediatrician from the 1 year well check until her senior. her senior year, she went for some little eczema on her foot. That was it. She went to the pediatrician at her 1 year well check, and she didn't go back to the pediatrician. She $0. She was having a conversation yesterday at work with a girl that was talking about her knees were hurting, and so she was talking about which ibuprofen or Advil. Caitlin was telling me this last night. She was like, "I don't even know what those things are," but she's like, she was talking about one of them, and she's like, I told her, like, you know that I've never had one of those, right? And she was like, "What?" Yeah, because she's been adjusted since she was 9 days old. There's a difference in the way that you function once you start to understand that how your body works. A skeptical concern has been that cervical spinal adjusting could not elicit somatosympathetic reflexes because the sympathetic preganglionic cell bodies only extend from T1 to L1. That's not right, right? It's not the way that it works. Man, we just flew through this show tonight. Uh, That was fast. That was fast. I think this is worth picking up. If we'll probably do taking health to church on Monday, but I think this is worth picking up next week and seeing if we might could continue with this. So just the a short version. Look, your posture affects your brain. That's what, and it also affects your organs. So the better posture you have, the better organ function you're also going to have as well. And when you get adjusted, it helps that whole thing. That's all I got for you. I hope that was entertaining. I hope it was fun and educational. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday.